This is Pete England again, and I am going to talk about what is technical communication, give you a brief introduction to technical communication by comparing it to other forms of reading and writing, and then we're going to talk about why technical communication is so important in engineering and in civil engineering in particular. So, real quick, think about if you were looking at this book in the bookstore, how would you know what it's about? If you'd never seen the movie, if you've never read the book before, you're looking at it for the first time, what do you see? An old man with a beard walking next to a hill. I mean that could be me, for heaven's sake, right? There's nothing about this book that tells you what a hobbit is. Maybe a hobbit is that door that old man is about to use. Maybe that old man is a mechanical engineer and he's on his way to fix an old Volkswagen. There's just no way to know, right? Why is that? What about this book cover? You know, there are no instructions in this book about how to kill birds, right? This is not a hunting manual, which is sort of a disappointment to me. When I read it years ago, I had hopes and they were disappointed. What is this book about? Is Harper Lee, is it that young lady in the picture, is that Harper Lee right there? No. Is she a mockingbird? Is she about to kill a mockingbird? In other words, my question is, why does a novel not have a more explicit title and a more explicit cover? Well, the answer is that all fiction, any fiction, romance, mystery, science fiction, fantasy, poetry, is all about what happens next. It's all about suspense. I don't know about you, but when I was in high school, I was under the impression that suspense was something that we only found in mystery novels. Well, that's not true at all. Science fiction, as I said, fantasy, romance, any kind of fiction, and then this goes for TV shows and movies as well, depends on your being concerned about what happens next. Right? Okay. So let's look at a different kind of writing. What is this article about? Well, it's about virtual cities for water distribution and infrastructure system research. There's very little mystery there, isn't there? Who's the author? Well, it looks like Kelly Brumbelow, Jacob Torres, Seth Gukema, Elizabeth Bristow, and Lufthansa Konta. Let's see, if I have any questions, do I have their contact information? Yeah, looks like contact information right there. Well, what if I don't, if I'm not sure what they mean by virtual cities or water distribution or infrastructure system research? Right below the title, we have an abstract. Look at that. It tells us what this article is about. Now, why is that? Why is it so different than To Kill a Mockingbird or The Hobbit? Well, the answer is this. Technical communication is not about creating suspense at all. In fact, the title, right, the subject line, and the abstract are designed to save you time. So, for instance, if you read it and you realize this is not in your field or not in your area of interest, you can put it down. In other words, the authors have gone out of their way to make sure that you don't get tricked into reading this thing, that you have an opportunity to put it down and not read it. And that's a totally different model than what we see with fiction. With fiction, we want a good cover and a good title that lead us to pay $9.99 or whatever it is. I haven't bought a paper book in years. I don't know what they cost. I usually do my reading on an app. The point is to get you to pay money, whereas the point of this paper here is to inform you and not waste your time. So technical communication is all about not wasting time. There's no suspense. There should be no mystery. Your results, your primary message, they're foregrounded by the title and the abstract or whatever genre you're using. Memos, for instance, do not have abstracts. But the juice, the meat, the money side of what you're writing about is foregrounded. There should be no suspense. So, how could we define technical communication if it's that different than fiction and poetry and television shows and movies? how could we define technical communication? Well, technical communication is the act of getting specialized, often detailed information from the people who know it to the people who need to know it so that they can make a decision or perform an action. In other words, the only reason for you to go see the new summer movie, right, is to have fun and find out what happens. But the reason why you read a memo at work or read a job proposal is so that you can then make a decision. Yes, we're going to do this. No, we're not going to do this. Or so you can perform an action, right? It seems like a silly, kind of basic thing to talk about, but this is fundamental to how you write technical communication, is that you're always making sure that the audience does not have to work harder than necessary to get to the information that you're trying to give them. So the qualities of successful technical communication start with focus. The writing needs to address one subject at a time. One of the things that you'll find is that really good technical writing sometimes has, and in fact often has, very short paragraphs. Many of you were taught that a paragraph is a group of 6 to 8 sentences. That's garbage. That's not a paragraph. A paragraph is a group of words, sometimes sentences, that address a single idea. And those words and sentences are grouped together and focused in such a way that the reader does not have to put much effort into understanding. So let's move to the next step. If I'm not having to put much effort into understanding your writing, that means that it's clear, right? Clarity can be defined as not having to put extra effort into understanding. Well, so how do you know if you're putting extra effort into understanding? If you have to read the way that I judge it in this class, if I have to read your paragraph twice, if I have to read a sentence twice to understand what you're saying, it's not as clear as it could be. Technical writing, successful technical writing, is accurate. Your numbers, your statements, your assertions, your claims, they're all accurate, right? You use the best information that you have, and when you don't have information, you try to use the best descriptions that you can. It is persuasive. Technical communication, successful technical communication, persuades me that you know what you're talking about and that I should do what you're suggesting. It's complete. Successful technical communication does not leave the reader with a bunch of questions. Instead, it should satisfy the questions that that person has so that, again, he or she can make a decision or perform an action. So, what do you need to know about this? Well, most of the writing you've done so far for school, right? So most of you have been in school for roughly 16 years, K through 12, and then 3 or 4 years of college, 16 years of school. The overwhelming majority of the writing that you've done has been essays. Essays exist so that you can demonstrate knowledge or skill, and they tend to be very wordy. For instance, a teacher might say, I need 10 pages of analysis on, metaphors of magic in Shakespeare's Macbeth. And so you're an engineer at heart, so that means you're a very efficient person. So you're able to answer that question in 3 pages. Your teacher asked for 10 pages. So what do? Well, you just type, right? Type for 7 more pages. Add a bunch of fluff, say the same thing 20 or 30 more times, and there you go. You've got 10 pages. Well, in the workplace, we don't have page requirements. Your boss is never going to say, I need a minimum 20 pages or a minimum 5 pages. Actually, the shorter it is and the clearer it is and the better it is, the more likely you are to be a hero, right? So if you can get it done in 2 pages instead of 10, you're a hero, not a slacker. In writing for this class and for your career, we're not going to have any page requirements. In this class, when I give you a memo assignment, I'm not going to say minimum 10 pages, minimum 5 pages. I'll tell you how long they tend to be on average, but there's no minimum or maximum length. You describe what it is that we've asked you to describe in as few words as possible. So everything that you do in this class and in your career is going to be technical communication. The purpose is to get information to someone else as quickly and easily as possible. It tends to be blunt. you tend to not have an opening paragraph that reaches out and grabs the reader's attention. So we don't do that in technical writing. We're writing about subjects that tend to make people money or lose people money. That pretty much gets their attention, right? So you're not going to have statements like, since the dawn of history, humanity has wondered. No, heavens no. You're going to get right into it. Your writing is going to tend to be very blunt. Engineers have a reputation for being blunt. Embrace the reputation. Be blunt in your writing. Now, why do you need to know this? Why do you need to write this way? Well, most of civil engineering is technical communication. Your plans, procedures, processes, site descriptions, which we're going to be doing next week, your recommendations, your justifications, all those are different ways of getting information from the people who know it to the people who need to know it so that they can make a decision or perform an action. And in civil engineering, it's an unusually communications intensive discipline. You're going to have to communicate with city council members. Even if you work for a private firm, most of your projects are going to deal with a municipality, a city, or a state in one way or another. And you will have to communicate with city council, city managers. You'll have to communicate with city engineers who are engineers but who are not engineers in your specialty. Maybe you're a water engineer and the city engineer is a structural. You'll have to explain things to multiple audiences, people who are technical experts, people who are not technical experts, people who have no engineering background whatsoever. You're still going to have to explain it. So, for instance, in aerospace engineering, it's possible to have an entire career where mostly you communicate with other aerospace engineers. In civil engineering, that's impossible. You will always be communicating with both technical and non-technical people across disciplines. So that's why technical communication is so vital to the practice of civil engineering. Okay, if you have any questions, let me know. peter.england@tamu.edu. And this is the end of our introduction to technical communication.